This is Krista Michener. Welcome back to Made to Be Whole. This week, we are talking about the New Year's resolutions that you're going to be pondering in the next few weeks. We're going to talk about what makes a good one, what makes a bad one, and how to make them stick. Stay tuned. Made to Be Whole is intended for informational purposes only. It's not intended to replace the advice or care of a licensed healthcare professional. Participating in this podcast does not constitute a provider-patient relationship with Krista Michener, AHP Integrative Health, or any of the guests featured on Made to Be Whole. Krista Michener, AHP Integrative Health, and any featured guests aren't responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from use of information obtained in this podcast or associated materials. Please consult a healthcare professional for any health-related concerns that you are experiencing. All right, let's dig into the topic of New Year's resolutions. I'm not a huge fan of them, but they are a thing that happens every year. So I'm going to start off by talking about what the worst New Year's resolution is ever. But it is also the most popular and profitable one, and that would be to lose weight. And I'm going to tell you why I think that's an awful New Year's resolution. First of all, it fails miserably for many people because it's focused on an outcome, not on your input. It doesn't typically take into account things that are beyond our control. I think a lot of times people are doing it for the wrong reasons. It's kind of a superficial thing. It can lead to a lot of self-loathing instead of self-care and self-improvement. It focuses on this flawed idea that we have that our worth is based on size or on body image. I'm probably a little ultra sensitive to this because, like a lot of Westerners, I struggled for a long time with eating disorders and all of the emotional aftermath of that stays with you for years past. I'll tell you where that kind of started for me when I was a younger teen. My mom had lost a bunch of weight, and I saw how people treated her differently and how she actually took better care of herself, bought herself nice things, did things that she hadn't allowed herself to do, and seemed for a time happier. And I thought, well, she can do that. I can do that. So I started just simply at the beginning, I was just cutting out snacks, cutting out desserts, but it kind of snowballed from there. Unfortunately, society's reaction to my weight loss really fueled the cycle because suddenly I was in 8th grade at the time. People talked to me that didn't talk to me before. Teachers were nice to me that hadn't been nice to me before. Apparently, you're more valuable when you're skin than not chubby in a lot of people's calculations. And so that makes it hard to say, boy, this isn't important. I want more of this. I actually had a counselor once, and I may have mentioned this before, who had a client who lost 100 pounds and decided at one point that she was done and just gained it back because then she knew who her friends really were, the people who were her friends, regardless of what her size was. Now, I'm not saying weight isn't an issue for people and it's not something that should be addressed, but I think that we have to choose New Year's resolutions that are more focused on the process than the product. So along those lines, other not great New Year's resolutions, and not because the outcome you're looking for is bad, but because they're like too vague and not process oriented, is be healthy. It's well intentioned, but it's super vague. And typically, for a lot of people, it's code for eat better and exercise more, i.e., lose weight. Probably the third most terrible New Year's resolution, but also a popular one, is to get organized. Again, it's a great idea, but it's vague. I think what we have to do when we're looking at setting goals for our health is to look at first, what is it that you want? What is it that you're looking for? I hear people with the whole weight thing say, oh, I want to look great in a bikini, or I want the people at my high school reunion to be amazed. And if that's what like floats your boat, go for it. I'm not here to help you with that. If what you want is to be able to move better, if you say, I want to be able to get on the floor and play with my grandchildren, that's That's motivation. That's intent that's going to drive you. You've got to look at what your obstacles are. And when you're choosing a New Year's resolution or a goal anytime, because goal setting is just a great way to live, look at what your core values are. This comes up a lot in business. And I recently watched a webinar with MedMasters where they interviewed Norm Westerfeld. And it was really interesting. But he talked about how businesses and business owners needed to really get in touch with their core values and figure out what they were, and that his were simplicity, structure, and service. And I thought that's a really, really great outline for a lot of life, but also for resolutions or goals. They should be simple, they should be structured, and at least part of what we're aiming for in life should be service oriented. So many of you have probably heard about SMART goals. Everybody who's worked for a major business has probably had some handout or card given to them talking about SMART goals that, in my experience, were talked about a lot, but nothing was ever actually done about them. But a SMART goal, it's a good outline, it's a good start. It is specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and it's time bound. So, what does that mean for your life? So, first of all, specific. It needs to be something like I want to play on the floor with my grandchildren versus I want to be healthier. You have a specific outcome that you're looking at and it's measurable. I'll have achieved my goal when I can get down on the floor and play with my grandchildren. It's achievable. It needs to be something that is actually within your ability to do. So, for example, it would not be an achievable goal for me to say, one day I really want to play in the NFL. That would be absolutely ridiculous. I'm 50, I'm 5 feet tall, I'm a female. It's just not going to happen. So, get away from that. Oh, I can do anything if I set my mind to it. That's just not true. But what are things you can achieve with hard work? And also, if it's a big, lofty goal that you really could do someday, you need to do those smaller goals working up to that. It should be relevant. It should be something, this is more like a business mentality that it's got to be relevant for the mission of the company. But if you are an individual who's identified your core values, it should be relevant to that, to helping you live the type of life that you want to live. I have one patient who I've been super impressed with, and I complimented her a few months ago because her health journey has been really, really long and it's been a real struggle. And I bring up new things and she's willing to do them. She was willing to do neurofeedback, which really helped her move the needle on her anxiety. She's been willing to try different things for sleep, and we finally found something that works. She was willing to get the genetic testing that I recommended, which really did give us a lot of information. And I said, I really admire your ability to keep trying and to keep doing new things. And she said, I have this vision for how I want my life to be. One day I want to be well enough that I can have a family. And so that's what drives me. That's why I keep going. And I thought that was really beautiful and powerful and a good spin-off on when I say relevant. So for her, if she's choosing goals or choosing either, financial goals, health goals, goals of what you do with your time, she's going to choose things that are relevant to that goal of getting my health on track. And she's wise enough to recognize that health is a puzzle. And it's a puzzle without a picture on the box and without the known number of pieces. And that makes it really challenging. And some people, their health may be a nice 100-piece puzzle with big pieces that with clearly defined borders and all the colors, and you can put it together while you're sitting down having a drink. But for some people, it's like an 1,000-piece puzzle, and it's complex, and all the borders are fuzzy, and it takes time. So just because it may take many more goals and actions to get there doesn't mean it's not achievable, but pick things that are relevant. And then the last T in the SMART goal is time bound, meaning you need to have deadlines for yourself. So say your SMART goal, we were talking about this with getting on the floor with your grandchildren. You would say, I want to be able to do that by December of next year, but then you would figure out all of your little intermediate goals. Now, I have added, in honor of my husband, an ER at the end so we can do even smarter goals. And it's has extra meaning because his name is Eric, so there's the ER. The ER is earn rewards. Eric is all about rewards. And when we met in college, he would reward himself for everything. He studied until dinner, and then he would reward himself by going and playing basketball or getting an ice cream cone, doing something with his friends. But he had this consolidated amount of time that he dedicated to school, and he focused hard on it. He wasn't distracted, and then he would go reward himself. And I think that you have to do those rewards in order to keep going. There's some people who just are fine with the intrinsic reward, but I think for a lot of people, having little things that we do to reward ourselves, and not just reward ourselves for the outcome, but for our effort. So I have made my own set of letters here, which is deeper. You've got to dig deeper to be successful with your health goals or with any goals. And so it's DEEPER. The D is for desire, the E is for educate, the next E is examine, then P is for plan, E for execute, and then R is review, reward, and repeat. So first of all, you have to really want it. And that really is a good enough start. I'm going to dig here a little more into scripture because I love this story and I think it teaches us a lot about why that's a good start. So in the Book of Mormon, there was a prophet named Alma who was a missionary. He was teaching people, and there was a lot of persecution. They had been cast out of different places. So they started going and having more success among the poor class of people. And they were people who had been cast out of their synagogues, says, because of the coarseness of their apparel. And so they had actually been the people who had built the synagogues, but they were esteemed by their brethren as dross, and they were poor as to the things of the world and also poor in heart. So Alma was teaching some other people, and these people came to him, and he immediately turned and started teaching them because he discerned that they were actually wanting to learn. They were there and had a desire to learn and to change. And they came and asked him, like, well, what can we do? We're despised of all men because of our poverty. We're despised by our priests. They've cast us out of the synagogue that we have labored abundantly to build with our own hands. They've cast us out because of our exceeding poverty. We have no place to worship God. What shall we do? So he turned around, he started talking to them, and he said, hey, first of all, you're lowly in heart, so blessed are ye. He said, and then goes through this discourse about how you don't have to be in your synagogues to worship God. It doesn't happen just once a week. You, because of these afflictions, which are unfair, you're humble and you're going to be more wise and you're going to be really able to change and learn, and you can have all of the blessings that are available to everyone. It's not because of your circumstance. And then he says, if you don't have faith, the first thing you have to do is have a desire. And if you have a desire, let that desire work in you and it can grow into something more. And the reason I like this story as it relates to health and health goals is because there are people who I care for who are in a really similar situation as far as their experience in the medical world. They have spent a lot of time and a lot of money and given everything they have, and they feel like they've been cast out. People have told them they're crazy, their problems are because of their anxiety, there's nothing they can do for them. And then I have people who, because of that, feel trapped, like, well, I don't have $1 million in the bank. I can't get well. I can't get well. I can't. And I would say you can. There may be some more challenges, but you start with that desire. If you really, really want to get better, there are things that you can do to help yourself achieve those goals. So if you have a desire to do something, then the next thing you want to do is educate yourself about what success looks like. So, say in the context of the infections that I talk a lot about treating, you say, I have one of these vector borne infections and I want to get better. I want to be healthy. So educate yourself. Okay, people that have healed and have recovered, and there are plenty of them out there, what did they do? Educate yourself about what's getting in the way for healing. Educate yourself about all the pieces and focus on the things that are in your control. Because if you think that just having money is going to get you better, it's not. It's not. It certainly helps a lot of things, but there are a lot of things within your control that you can do. And then do some honest reflection. Examine your life, examine what barriers are in the way, which things can you control, which things can you not, and choose the ones that you can control, and then make a plan. It's not enough to just want it or to know what you need to do. You need to make a plan for how this is going to work in your life. And I suggest that you make a plan that's pretty simple and practical. You have to, like, say movement is your goal, okay? You know that part of healing is you have to move more, you have to increase circulation. Movement helps detoxification. So make a plan that's simple and portable. One example of how I've done this for me, movement helps a lot. And I discovered earlier this year vibration plates, which you can stand on, you can sit and put your feet on. I have one under my feet, under my desk right now. And I noticed tremendous improvements when I started using it, especially in my head pressure and some of my ear symptoms. It's like I could feel things being shaken out because it helps lymph drainage. And we have lymph in our heads, but we can't reach our little fingers up, and massage the lymph system in our head. So vibration helped. And then I got to thinking, okay, this helps. I sit a lot at work. That's where I spend most of my hours in the day. So I bought a plate and I've got it under my desk and I use it during the day because I thought it's not enough for me to just want to use it more because when I'm at home, I have limited time with my kids. I'm tired by the end of the day. I'm going to find a way to move where I am. So make a plan and make it portable and practical. And then execute the plan. All you need to do is start. You just need to start. And then you do this cycle of reviewing how you've done, rewarding yourself, and reward yourself, like I said, based on your input, not just the outcome. Don't say, oh, I'm going to reward myself when I lose 50 pounds. Say, I'm going to reward myself if I exercise 5 days this week. I'm going to let myself go watch a movie that I wasn't going to, or buy a book, or do something fun with my friend, whatever it is that makes you happy, find small rewards and give those to yourself. And then you repeat the cycle because if you're trying to climb a mountain, you don't go straight up. You do a lot of this up and back and forth and back and forth. And I heard a really interesting talk. He had spoken first at Brigham Young University and then at a church service. Dale Renlund talked about this vertical climb, how in spiritual matters, people say, why do we keep doing the same things over and over? Why do we say, oh, you have faith, you repent, you do all this, and then you just keep doing it like it's the circle? And he said, if you're looking down, it's a circle. You're going in circles. But if you step back and look for the side, every time you complete that circle, you're ascending higher and higher. You're a different person. You're a better person. You're a stronger person. So that cycle of repeating the same act again and again is not just redundancy. It is literally the way we ascend. We don't jump from sickness to health. We have to repeat and just keep going with that cycle and continually educating yourself, examining how what you're doing's work. Because say you go through the cycle and then when you're reviewing, you say, this helped, but this didn't. Then you tweak your plan. You execute that plan and you keep going. One of the other things that Norm Westerfeld said in this webinar I watched, he said that he is a student of his body. And I thought that's a really, really great goal and a great mentality to have instead of saying, oh, I'm tired in the evenings. I hate my body. Be a student of your body. Say, I'm tired in the evenings. Is there something that I need to change about the way I eat or move to avoid that? Or is this just my body's natural rhythm and I need to go to bed earlier than some people? Or I need to come home and just take a break before I could have enough energy to take care of my family and make dinner? Don't feel like a victim of your body. Be a student of it, and you're going to be a lot more successful in setting goals. And I would suggest, as you're looking at goals, to choose foundational goals. And I have 4 foundations that I would recommend looking at. First of all, and you don't need to have goals in all of these areas at once. I don't want anyone to be overwhelmed and over goal themselves and then accomplish nothing. But the first one is your physical foundation. So you probably know what needs to happen to improve your physical foundation, whether it's better rest, better nutrition, better exercise. Those things are very simple, but they're very foundational. So the physical foundation is critical, and our bodies are not something we just get to ignore and hope we age well. We get closer and closer to the final end of our life. We have to be more and more attentive to our bodies because things don't work as automatically as they used to. So physical foundation, and if you're making a physical goal that has to do with, say, exercise, I've mentioned this before, but start if you don't move at all, start with 5 minutes and then 10, and you will get to the point, even when it's hard at first, that you want it. Once something becomes a habit, you'll miss it and you'll want to do it, but it does take that repeated effort. Start small. As far as nutrition, again, I suggest for most people, it's easier to fix one thing at a time. Most people aren't going to be able to suddenly go from eating processed foods, eating out all the time, to a whole foods, organic diet that they prepare themselves and eat all healthy foods. That's just not practical. Pick practical, measurable changes. Do that, do it for a month, and then fix something else. So, next is the mental foundation. This could mean a lot of different things, but I like to think of learning as a great goal because it's something that really is driven mostly by process and input. And so you have a lot of control over your success in this area. So it may be that you want to learn about pain management, or you want to learn about something in history that fascinates you, or you want to learn to play the piano. I mean, there's so many things we can learn, it's endless. But I think mental goals are great goals because regardless of your physical health, there are always things you can learn, always things you can learn. And it's so rewarding to feed your mind and to feed it with things that aren't just quick blasts from social media, from regular media, just all the stuff that's fed to us. Instead, be conscious about what you take into your mind. The next would be an emotional foundation. So, the two areas that come to mind immediately for me that I think apply to most people, the first is improving relationships. Our relationships are so critical to our health. Now, granted, we do not have control over the other people in our lives. It always has to be a two-way street. You can't make your marriage work if you're married to someone who doesn't want it to work or is abusive and has no desire in changing. But the relationships that you do value, really be thoughtful, ponder, pray, do whatever you need to figure out how can I improve the relationship with like this child. We have children, parenting isn't a one size fits all thing. And I've had to really think a lot about each of my children. Some of them talk to me a lot, and it's really obvious kind of what their needs are because they make them known. Others are a little more closed-lipped and teenagery, and I have to be a little more creative about how I can improve that relationship without being intrusive. The other thing that affects a lot of people is addressing trauma. It's a scary thing, it's a hard thing, but if you have trauma, and I don't know anyone who doesn't at least have what I've referred to as the micro traumas, And a lot of people who unfortunately have been the victims of abuse and neglect, that is a major impediment to your health if that just stays suppressed. Certainly, people who have been through very traumatic things can heal and be healthy and whole, but they're going to have a much, much harder time if they try to just put that in a silo and push it to the side because it affects how we interact with others. It affects inflammation. It affects our body's ability to detoxify. It affects our mental health, certainly. So, if you were going to set a goal to address trauma, I guess the first thing would be the desire. You have to want to do it and be willing. But then when it comes to education, you just have to be mindful about your sources. We are in some ways more isolated because of the internet, because we don't have as much one on one interaction. But in other ways, we have so many more resources because you really can look into different modalities for healing. There's so many online counseling places now that will match you with someone. And if it's not a good fit, you can just say, hey, sorry, not a good fit. And they'll find someone else for you. There are a lot of things outside of counseling that are helpful for trauma that are more widely available, like neurofeedback that we've talked about. There's EMDR. There are a lot of different therapeutic modalities, just a ton of stuff. So educate yourself about the effect trauma might be having on your health and examine what your barriers are to healing, and then make a plan. Make it a small and simple plan. Execute it. It takes a lot of courage. It's one little step at a time. And I would reward yourself soon and frequently because it is a really difficult thing, but you will be so much happier in life if you can allow yourself to feel those hard feelings and connect yourself with resources to help you resolve and work through what you certainly did not deserve, but is still with you. And then again, review, reward, repeat. So that one is a really tough one, but I think that's a very, very worthy goal. And the last foundation that I would recommend would be a spiritual foundation. Connect with the divine. I know that takes different forms in different people's lives, but just like I was talking about with goals in general, it starts with the desire. I've had people tell me before, well, I would love to have faith, but I just can't. I just can't. And I'm not saying that it's an easy thing, but if you have that desire, it's something that you can feed. If it's something that's already part of your life, focus on goals that help strengthen you spiritually, help you feel more connected. Certainly, one of the best things any of us can do is to meditate. Sometimes that meditation takes on the form of prayer. If you're not someone that prays, you still will be spiritually more whole and more resilient if you take quiet time to be alone, to ponder, to listen to your body, to listen to your thoughts, to not judge yourself, but to be a student of them. I remember when the concept of mindfulness was first introduced to me by a therapist we were seeing several years ago, and she said, it's like you're watching the clouds go by. Those are your thoughts. And just because you see one doesn't mean you have to attach yourself to it. You're just observing them. And I think sometimes I think of them like balloons, and sometimes we let them go, sometimes we want to pop them, but don't judge yourself for having a thought you think is weird or for feeling angry about something or upset with someone. Your thoughts are just your thoughts. It's what you do with them that make you who you are, and your thoughts are going to teach you. And so you need to be a good observer and realize that the power to heal, yes, outside resources are needed and they are helpful, but so much of it is within. So much of it has to do with having a mentality and believing that you can be healed, which leads you to try different things, to not give up, and don't go at it like, okay, I'm going to be healthy, so I'm going to go buy 20 supplements that are really going to help me. No, 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 no. You do that, you're not going to know what works, what doesn't. You're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to quit. You're going to run out of money. Start with investigating, like the nutrient testing we talked about or whatever you do and saying, I think I need to start with some B vitamins. I think my body's really missing that. Implement it. See how you feel, review, see, okay, this got me this much better. What else could I do? Just slow and steady. Health is a journey. Healing is a journey, not an event. It is not an event. We wish healing were an event where there was just the be healed and everything's great. But even though those moments have happened in history, they're more there to teach us. And we become whole as we care for ourselves and take accountability for our health. So, headed into the new year, you can make a goal to lose weight, but don't tell me about it. I don't care. I want to hear about the goals that you have that are going to help you be a better person. And I don't care what you look like in your bikini. You're you. You matter despite what your size is. So hang in there, stay tuned, and remember you were made to be whole. Have a podcast question or suggestion? Text or call us on the podcast info line at 330-439-0686. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to be notified when new episodes release. And remember, you were made to be whole.